Alright, so I don't know why I was surprised when I was asking you guys, hey, who do you want me to compare Fae Knight Gawain to? I was like, surely it's not just going to be Gawain, but I mean, it's really easy to make a comparison between the two of them because they're built so similarly to one another. I mean, even down to like their decks, their niches, and like everything that they do is so similar, and there's just a few things that separate them, but really, if you go through their kits, a lot of what they have mirrors one another. I mean, they both give themselves NP, they both have a charisma, they both get a buff with sunlight, they both got massive buster buffs. Like, they literally have so much in common with one another, but it's the little things that I think separate them and where we can have a discussion on who is quote-unquote better. Now, if you enjoy FGO content, I upload these videos every single day, and all I ask for in return is a like on the video and a subscribe to the channel. But if you're feeling super extra feisty, you can become a channel member by clicking that join button. Also, if I say that Gawain or this Fae Knight Gawain is better than the other, that's not me saying that you're a big dummy for, preferring one or the other. This is just simply my opinion on who I prefer in certain scenarios and kind of comparing their kits and, just looking at what each character does better than the other, right? So don't get your tits in a tussle, right? If I say that, Gawain's a better farmer or something, which that's probably the best place to start because I do believe Gawain is a better farmer. Now, looking at his NP damage, you look at his damage and you're like, wow, that's kind of poo-poo stinky. That's not very good. That's very low damage. But then you look over when he's got his sunlight buff, he's actually hitting a respectable number. He's at about like 20,000, I believe, when it comes to having the sunlight up. Where did Gawain go? Oh, there he is. I was like, bro, where is Gawain? Yeah, but you look, he's at 21,000. That's a respectable number for an AoE farmer. And then you look at the Fae Knight, and now I know there's a lot to consider when it comes to her doing damage. There is, does she have her sunlight buff? How many defense debuffs has she gotten on the enemy, This, I'm kind of just looking at like a base level. This is what you can expect. You guarantee get the 18% attack buff, and then you get 50% buster because she has 30% on this skill, and then she gets 20% bare minimum from overcharge. So her damage is going to look better than Gawain if he doesn't have his sunlight buff, just at base level. But if he has his sunlight buff, then he's going to look better. And fortunately for Gawain, he guarantees the sunlight battlefield buff at least for one turn, meaning if you pop this first, then pop his first skill, you actually will guarantee get both buffs, like no matter where you're at. It is only for one hit, but he is a buster servant, so you got to understand that it's not like he's an arts or a quick servant where he's going to be looping his NP or anything. Really, if you're just using him for farming or something, he's just going to need to do that one NP. So it's really not going to be an issue. And that, again, kind of tying back to why I think Gawain is better when it comes to farming, is he has the immediate battery. Don't misunderstand, I value this skill a lot more because I think this is bringing so much utility to the Buster team specifically. Like a double Merlin setup, I think this is crazy good because for one, you got to consider that Merlin gives himself 5% NP every single turn, and she's giving everyone 15%. So not only is that good refund for her, but it's giving Merlin a fifth of his NP back every single turn for 3 turns, which means you get closer to firing your NP, which gives you even more NP regen, star regen, HP regen, which she would really like because that's her method of survivability, is just being really tanky and trying to cut down on damage. So it's like, not only does she do that, but giving the party like a decent damage cut is something that I really feel like the double Merlin team really needs. Because I really get scared sometimes going with double Merlin, because your only method of survivability is the HP regen and then the second skill that gives you party-wide invincibility. You don't have any hard defense, which is why most of the times I'll actually go in with like Merlin and Waver, so that Waver can just give me, the defense and the damage cut, so I don't feel as afraid of just getting bursted down by a powerful enemy. Because it's not, you don't have any of that hard survivability. So it's really like, it got me shook sometimes. I'm like, man, I don't know if I'm just going to get blown up by a really powerful enemy. But she's providing damage cut to make the team a bit tankier, and then also really synergize well with Merlin, just with that team specifically. So the point that I'm getting across, right, is that I like this skill probably more than the battery, but this makes Gawain more useful for farming because it's an immediate battery, so you can just pop the NP now. It does have, you have to have K-scope because it's only 20%, so you have to have at least a baseline K-scope to get that 80% starting, then to have this help you reach 100%. So I do understand that to use Gawain effectively for like 3-turn farming, like if you want him to be a part of your farming setup, it is a bit costly because you're going to need a K-scope and not everybody has that, still waiting for the K-scope banner. Honestly, if they put K-scope on rate up, I think that probably would make them some of the most money in the entire game because of how broken that CE is. But yeah, it's very limited, so it's harder to use, but just assuming you have the resources, he's going to be better for farming because of the immediate battery, and he's going to be doing more damage consistently. Again, if you're Buster 3-turn farming, you're really just like bringing 3 powerful servants and then just slam dunking people. Unless you're Morgan, and you can kind of loop your NP, but that's kind of the meta we're slowly moving into for Buster servants. But Gawain and Fae Knight Gawain aren't really doing that. They're not as cracked out as Morgan is, at least when it comes to refunding your NP, but I think Gawain wins out when it comes to farming. Now, I think the Fae Knight Gawain wins out in like everything else, especially if you're going into difficult content. Like if you need an AoE saber, you bring this lovely big titty goddess to just destroy everything in there, because everything she has is designed to kill some. Oh, and God forbid you're on a sunlight battlefield, dude, and you're getting the extra damage where she's actually going to start like competing with Gawain. But you just like look at how this is built, man. She's punishing the enemy. She's punishing them for trying to make themselves stronger, because not only is she going to remove their buffs, she's going to get extra damage by lowering their defense, and then she's also recovering her own HP, which is massive, by the way, coupled with the fact that her NP buffs her max HP by 3k for 5 turns, so it's very likely you can stack at least 2 of those, right, in that 5-turn cooldown. So, like, she's just going to be insanely hard to kill, just because she has so much HP, she's giving damage cut to herself, and then you're not really going to be starving for damage cut, because her NP, that, again, you're likely going to be able to fire off with, some regularity with Merlin, having the double Merlin strat, or having, I mean, you can just probably slap Castoria on the team because Castoria's just that good. But you're going to be able to reduce that to make sure that you can kind of keep the damage party going. You can keep taking away their buffs, keep regenerating your HP, keep providing massive damage cut. Well, not massive, but decent damage cut to the entire party. She's giving this to everybody to help them get their NP, to help her out even more. She's just absolutely insane. And then I just love when they do this, right? When they don't give you a mana burst, quote unquote, because then they usually only say like, okay, here's 50% Buster for 1 turn. They split it so that the buffs could be 3 turns, but you're getting a mana burst when you fire your NP, because 20% here, 30% here, now you're getting a 50% mana burst. So it's like, it's so strong, and I love that they did that, because it allows them to make these things 3 turns, because they're like, well, it's only a 30% for 3 turns, like, we gotta make it longer, because if it was a mana burst, it'd be like 1 turn probably, or it'd be split into 3 attacks, because they gotta balance it. But I love it when they do stuff like this, because it allows the servants to be more broken, kind of in a sneaky way, if you know what I'm saying. So I think for anything that's not like just straight up farming, you're gonna use her way more than Gawain. I understand if you like Gawain personally. I mean, he does look sick. I mean, I love this outfit for him, but and he's pretty sick. But with the animation update, dude, he does look pretty cool. But everything aside from that, like just aside from personal favorites and farming, I think she wins out. And don't misunderstand, you can bring her to farming. It's just you got to be a little more big-brained about it. You got to use like 50 more IQ, because she's not immediately getting the battery. But you can actually use her if you're able to pump enough NP into her. You can actually use her for 1 or 2 nodes, right? Or, God forbid you have like every single support caster known to man, and you could probably get through all 3 with a max limit broken scope. So, I mean, that's kind of my take on it, right? That's kind of my take. If you got a lot of resources, like I know he requires a K scope just to farm, but if you got like all the other casters, like you got like Reigns and Waver and Castoria, people that can give her 50% NP, you could probably get away with using her. The problem is that at base, if you need damage, you're probably going to go with Gawain, because he's going to be getting that more for free. Because unfortunately, while I am wholly aware that she can out-damage Gawain very easily, the only issues I have is that in farming, you're not going to wait for your enemies to buff themselves, unless for whatever reason it's like you have her paired with Kiyohime, where like Kiyohime's first skill is buffing her defense, but then gives the enemy an attack buff. So unless you're doing that to purposefully give yourself the ability to remove their buff to get 10% extra damage, which, I mean, it helps her out. Like if you do that and you slap on 10% extra damage, I mean, you're at 19k, which is definitely a lot better, but I mean, it seems like a lot of work to just get a little bit of extra damage, right? But if that's what you want to do, you want to do that, man. But that's an issue I have. There's also the idea that a lot of harder bosses give themselves unremovable buffs. So if they're going to be giving themselves that, and that's what the difficulty is going to revolve around, is them giving themselves unremovable buffs, and the bosses really aren't going to focus on buffing themselves all that much, you're going to lose out on, you know, this extra damage from lowering their defense. So that's really one of the issues I have. And then the second is that she, at least right now, does not have a way to guarantee this. I imagine she'll get something like Gawain's second skill here, where he can guarantee it. Maybe on like an NP, it's like for 3 turns, it's Sunlight Battlefield, or we'll get a support. Because the Sunlight Battlefield thing is getting some support, because like Ozymandias specifically buffs people that have Sunlight. Gawain gives it to himself. She wants to be on Sunlight, so I imagine there'll be some, maybe during summer, someone like procs Sunlight Battlefield, like kind of how we got a Berserker Nobu, how she like makes it the Flame Battlefield or whatever. Maybe we'll get somebody like that for Sunlight, but we'll have to see, and that might grossly affect how good she is. Because if we can get something like that and they're a solid support, then I think she might edge out Gawain. But for now, I think Gawain is better when it comes to farming, and I think she's better in just every other aspect. I just really like her build. But I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments down below, because initially I was going to come in here and just be like, no, Fae Gawain is just way better. She's like infinitely better. But I stopped and thought about it for a little bit, and I was like, no, Gawain still has some relevance, right? And we got to also consider that he's a bit of an older servant that doesn't have a whole lot of buffs. Like his NP's not touched, and you know, they could still affect his first and third skill. So, you know, who knows? You know, maybe he'll edge her out. Maybe they'll give him some buffs. But with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. You guys have yourselves a nice day. Peace. Late, guys.